The necklace arrived before I did. I saw it the moment I stepped into the living room. Open velvet box, angled just enough to catch the light, my sister standing beside it like she had placed something permanent into the room. People were already gathered. Voices layered over each other, light and easy. My mother sat at the center, posture slightly elevated by attention rather than comfort. When my sister fastened the necklace around her neck, there was a small pause, the kind people leave for admiration. It worked. My mother touched the diamonds lightly, smiled in a way that felt practiced but genuine enough. Someone said something about elegance. Someone else mentioned how thoughtful it was. I stood near the doorway longer than necessary. The card was still in my hand. It didn't look like much. Thick paper, slightly uneven edges, ink that had smudged once where I'd hesitated too long. I had rewritten parts of it twice, not to make it better, just to make sure it said what I meant without saying too much. I waited for a moment when the room felt less full. There wasn't one, so I stepped forward anyway. I made something, I said. My voice didn't carry far. It didn't need to. My mother looked at me, briefly. Not with curiosity, not with expectation. Just acknowledgement that I was there. I handed her the card. She took it, glanced at the front, then opened it halfway. I watched her eyes move, not reading, just registering, then she closed it. There wasn't a pause. No attempt to soften the moment. She leaned slightly to the side and dropped it into the trash bin beside her chair. The best gift, she said, not raising her voice, would be if you disappeared from this family. A few people shifted. Someone let out a quiet laugh, uncertain whether it was meant to be a joke. My sister didn't react. She adjusted the necklace slightly, making sure it sat properly. Don't ruin the mood, my mother added, almost as an afterthought. There was nothing to respond to, not because I didn't have words, but because they didn't belong there. Not in that room. Not in that structure, so I nodded once more to myself than to anyone else, and stepped back. No one stopped me. Outside, the air felt cooler than I expected. I walked without looking back, not quickly, not slowly, just enough to leave the sound of voices behind me. Halfway down the street, I realized I was still holding the envelope I had brought the card in. I turned it over in my hands without opening it. It was quiet out there, not empty, just separate. For a moment, I tried to replay what had happened inside, but it didn't expand. It stayed contained. Like something already understood. There had been other moments, smaller ones, times when I stayed late to handle things no one else noticed. Calls I made. Appointments I scheduled. Information I kept track of because someone needed to. None of it had weight in that room, not the kind that could be displayed. A car slowed near the curb ahead of me. Not just a car. A long, dark limousine, out of place on that street. It stopped abruptly, not smoothly the way you'd expect. The door opened before the engine fully settled. Two people stepped out quickly, not dressed for an event. Focused. Urgent. I paused without meaning. To behind me, there was a sudden shift in the sound from the house. Not louder, but sharper. Movement instead of conversation. One of the people from the car looked toward me briefly, then past me, toward the house. "Is this the address?" the other asked. I nodded, though they weren't really asking me. They moved past me without waiting. I turned back. The front door was open now. The voices were different. Less controlled, less arranged. Someone called my mother's name, not softly. I stood there for a second, then walked back. Inside, the room had changed. The necklace was still there, catching the light the same way. But no one was looking at it anymore. My mother was on the floor, supported awkwardly by someone who didn't know how to hold her properly. My sister stood nearby, her expression caught between confusion and something closer to fear. The people from the limo were already beside her, speaking in short, clear sentences. Asking questions medical. It registered quickly. I didn't move at first. Not out of hesitation. Just recalibrating. Then one of them looked up. "Does anyone know her medical history?" Silence. My sister shook her head slightly. Like the question had been directed at the wrong person. I stepped forward. "I do." The words came out evenly. They shifted toward me immediately. Not emotionally, not with recognition, just with purpose. "Any conditions?" "Medication," I answered. "Not everything at once. Just what was needed in the order it mattered. Names, dates, details that had never been written down in one place but had been carried." They listened, adjusted, acted. Around me, the room stayed unsettled. People moved without direction. My sister hovered, trying to insert herself into the situation, but not quite finding where. No one told me what to do. No one thanked me. They just kept asking, and I kept answering. It was simple in a way the earlier moment hadn't been. No performance. No expectation, just necessity. When they lifted my mother onto the stretcher, her hand moved slightly, not reaching for anything, just reacting. For a second, I thought she might look at me. She didn't. They took her out the same way they came in. Quickly, efficiently. The room followed them to the door but didn't go beyond it. The limousine doors closed. The street returned to quiet. Inside, the space felt unfinished. My sister stood near the table, her hand still resting lightly on the necklace, as if it anchored her to something stable. She looked at me then, not with apology, not with the same certainty as before, just uncertain. I didn't say anything. There wasn't anything that needed to be said in that moment that would change what had already happened. I walked past her, back toward the doorway. The trash bin was still there. The card was visible near the top, slightly bent but intact. I didn't pick it up. Outside, the air felt the same as before, unchanged. But something had shifted, not in them, not clearly yet, but in the way I understood where I stood. I wasn't invisible, just measured by something I no longer needed to match. I kept walking, not away from them exactly, just forward, without waiting for the room behind me to make sense of it.